Good morning, good morning, good morning. I think it's funny you said mute when I just wasn't talking at all yet. You see, the mouth needs to move if I am muted for that to actually have an effect. But how is everybody doing? How is everybody doing today? I was actually not even at my computer yet. I was coming back with pie. And I have pie now. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I'm on my last piece of pie and I'm a little sad. But, you know, it's okay. How's everybody doing this morning? I'm doing lovely. Very, very lovely. Make more. I didn't make this pie to begin with. I have many talents, and cooking is most definitely one of them. You would be surprised, but baking is not. And pie making is a very, very difficult talent to have. But if you'd like to come make me a pie, I would really appreciate that. Let's see. By the way, you might notice I've been on time for the last I don't know how many streams so far. So I hope you all are happy with that. Now let me go disable the nerd voice before it gets redeemed, because there's no way I can do that voice this early in the morning. Oh, do not be proud of me. The only reason why I have been so consistent with being on time is because I've been told if I don't make it, I need to go reach out to a large content creator. And that is terrifying. Yes. Yes. Ooh. Yeah, mine is because I have to get ready for work. Lemon. Yeah. Yeah, I did notice. I did notice, unfortunately. Also, I am freezing right now. One second. Blanket has been acquired. And I am... Ooh. Yes, I suppose I will have to eat an entire lemon during a stream for some reason that I agreed to this. I cannot believe I have to eat a lemon during a stream. Why did I agree to this? I did not have to do this. I have to eat the lemon. Well, okay. We're gonna go through all of our viewers here today. Everyone who's checked in, I'll say hello to everybody. Ready? So, I'll be eating it in the evening. I cannot eat it in the morning. Good morning, Asher. Thank you for checking in. Congratulations, Carmia. I think you'll be getting first. Congratulations, Maddie on second and Asher on third. Good morning, Poison, and Nelia and Kane. Good morning, Onyx and Maddie and X-Virus. Good morning, Call Me Trinks, Sunny the Sunshine, and oh, hello, Moo Moo. I thought you'd be streaming right now. Good morning, Cammy and Sakona. Blue Valley Lilies. Good morning, Lunar Rain and Unicorn Tamer. Morning, Punkish and Admally. Good morning, iHeart Visual Guy. Julia, Dasha, and Brisk. Good morning, Silly and Momumia and Marine Wife. Good morning, Ariana and Sleepy Sunny. Good morning, Dolly and Flower. Hi, Flower Cow. Good morning, Pinky and Amelia. Good morning, you and Welshie, the Badger Queen. Morning, Shank, and hello, Monroe. It's been a little while. Well, how you doing there, Monroe? Good morning, Red Faye. And then good morning, Cinder. Good morning, Starwolf and Karamia. Good morning, Ghostly Nightlight and Dara. Well, I suppose we are going to have to do this accent for a little while, thanks to Pinky. Good morning, Ronan. Good morning, Quinn. Thank you for the follow and welcome to the menagerie. Good morning, Tana. Und Spooky und Kira. Good morning, good morning, good morning. So this morning I have woken up with a hurt arm. I don't know what I did. I must have slept on it very, very wrong because my shoulder is hurting so very badly. It's one of those things where I think I must have slept on something hard to make the muscles not want to work. Because whenever I try to lift up my arm is like, no, why would you ever want to be lifted up? So hopefully that will go away very, very, very soon. But it might be a bit. You think I'm getting old? No. This is a muscle pain. You may so come out here and fight me. If that is what you wish, come here. And I might be old, you young whippersnapper, but I can still hold you up and put you on the top of the fridge, and then you'll be stuck there forever. Yeah, Redfang, go to sleep. But no, so this is, it honestly feels like somebody was punching me in my arm all night. You know? Good to hear, Monroe. Good to hear. I feel like someone was just like, they did like little knuckle punches and they're going va, 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 over and over and over again. It was the voidlings. Why would you do this while I was sleeping? Why would you do this while I was sleeping? How could you? Going on va, va, va. Pie is so good. Oh, I love pie. I love pie. Alright, lovelies. Your grandpa used to put you on the fringe? That's crazy. I have to catch you first. God, me, I just have to wait for you to fall over. This pie is so... No, I'm kidding. Come here, you're not allowed to leave. You used to hide in the fringe. Honey, you should not be hiding in the fringe. That's so bad. That used to be a problem. Oh, 1 second, I need to move this blanket. Wait, chat, I know what I can do, because we're worried about losing Karamia. I just need to go. Oh, I'm proud of you, Maddie. Good for sleeping. Oh, come on, blanket. Stop letting me be cold. I need more blanket. 1 second. Alright, I'm ready. we doing? You're a Vistop and a sunbeam. A sunbeam is in you're laying in a sunbeam? Like a kitty cat? Thank you for the alert, punkers. Sleep well. Some of the best sleep I've ever had is pretending to be a cat. Have you ever done that before? Have you ever just, just laid down like a kitty cat in a sunbeam? Just laid out on the floor, slept on the ground. Happy first Advent. Do we start the Advent? Oh wait, you're on the, okay. Happy first Advent. It's called lizarding. But what if I want to be a kitty cat? You're not the first. Remember that they can't take you unless you consent. I, on the other hand, didn't ask your permission. I just locked you away. The first video you would have probably seen of me was me already putting you in a cage. They're like, I'm going to capture you. I'm like, you're already captured. What do you mean? Well, Moonlight Mittens, you might be surprised, but you are much larger than a cat, and can pick them up and lay them on you. You could make them share. How did you sleep acting as a cat? Oh, you stretch out, you do the whole laying out, stretch your back, then you curl yourself up in a little ball, and you lay in the sun. And then you stretch out more. We do big stretch, like all the best kitty cats. Isn't that right, my lovely kitty cats? My morning is very nice so far. Yeah, right. Honestly, like, sometimes it's fun to just act like a dog or a cat or something. Crawl around, get onto a bed, curl up and just lay down. Be like a dragon, stack up a bunch of blankets and lay on them. Doesn't matter how old or how young you are. Do it. Have some fun. Like that one, KPDH? APDH. Korean Police Department Hotel. That makes no sense. Why would you talk to me about the Korean Police Department Hotel? Forget humanity. Become monkey. KPHD. Remember. FH. BM. FHBM. Forget humanity, become monkey. Hello, Calypsy. Got a new phone. Damn chat, new phone, who dis? My lovely little voidlings, new phone, who dis? What if I do that? What if one stream I come in and I just pretend I got a new phone and I don't know who anybody is? Mm-hmm. Na poeta. Mm-hmm. Yeah, like I have you on my contacts. And just start being like, huh? Dude, who are you? Oh, Star Wolf. Alright, have a good one, Sonny. Forget humanity, become cryptid. Is that a game? New phone, new dis? I like the name of the game. You might ask yourself, Gene, where are you going? Gene, where are you going? I'm going nowhere. I'm just sprinting off into the distance right now. This feels like what I should be doing. Become Snake. Be Snake, also known as BS. I've always wanted to do this in real life. Just, one day being like, I'm just gonna go. If anybody asks you where, you just repeat, I'm just gonna go. And you just go. Keep going. Don't stop going until you get wherever you feel like you should be. Go. Thank you for the follow. Thank you, I grew it myself. Drive. Why don't I just drive into the mountains and just be like, it's mountain day today. But it is so cold. I call him Mr. Hermit, the man in the woods. How would I stream? Well, I would ideally only be there for one day. Hello, Star Baby. No, that makes sense, Ariana. Oh, hello, Raiders. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Give me just a second while I get my little raid scene going for you. Good morning, Raiders. My name is LuckyJene. I am an ASM artist, a gambler, a writer, and most importantly, I am a soon-to-be villain. You see, I had an idea a long time ago now of how to see my stream grow. You see, I built this little room, and my favorite feature, this. So welcome. You're not leaving anytime soon now, are you? Hello, Melvie. How was your stream? What were you doing? Did it go well? Don't worry though, since I'm imagining you're probably doing something like ASMR. We'll make the room a little bit more cozy. There we are, and can we get a shout out for the lovely Melvie? See, this is better. Can you lick Raiders? You may not lick the Raiders. Do not lick them. As I slowly grow in the distance. Stream was good. I'm glad to hear it was good. I'm glad to hear it was good. Well, if you need to raid and run, please feel free to do so. We're just gonna be playing some little chill Minecraft, hanging out. Vibing with some lovely soft-spokenness. I don't remember the words I just said. My brain is a little all over the place today. But I hope you enjoy your time. Can we lick the Raiders if they let us? If the Raiders wanted to be licked, you may lick them, but I'm imagining they probably don't. And thank you for the follow. Welcome, Donnie Rando, and Strange Coral to the menagerie. Oh, did we lag out there? There it is. I haven't fed you. Well, I haven't fed myself either. You're gonna need to be patient. Actually, I'm eating pie right now, so I suppose I have fed myself. Good morning, Mutt. Oh, feels a little rude to call you Mutt. Oh, Melvie, your stream looks really fun, actually. I love your room. So I had to take a look at your stream real quick because I got curious. But you have so many things in your room. What kind of pie? It is a mince pie. It is a bunch of different fruits soaked. One second, let me not laugh too. I don't know why it was so funny, but the father I crave the tasty Raider licks was so funny to me. What's the goal for today's exploration? Mostly just to go. Just to keep moving. Seeing what's in front of me. We got wolves, dogs, puppies, and badgers. We have a lot of animals here. Just go. Many raccoons. So many raccoons. It's very, very interesting. A dinosaur. Oh, that one's fun. Once upon a midnight dreary, while I pondered weak and weary. Thank you for the follow, Melvie. Thank you so very much. I hope you enjoy your time here. And I really appreciate you trusting me with your community. Melvie, would you like a poem? I would love to read The Raven for you if you're interested. It's been a little while. Whatever I am, that's valid. Yes, Moo, we're eating pie. Why were you wanting to steal my pie? Not gonna happen. Not happening. Yes, you did unfortunately hear that I will be eating a lemon later today. I'll be eating a lemon. One bite with the peel. And the rest of the lemon, just the fruit. Because somebody convinced me that it tastes better with the peel. Nope, somebody said it was better with the peel, so now I have to. Unfortunately. And here I thought there's no way you're gonna do it. Thank you for the follow, Lucy, Poochie, and Jets. Welcome to the menagerie. And I hope you enjoy your time while you're here. Cinder, the official ref is slowly being made right now. And it will be out soon. I did show a sample on Thanksgiving, so that's what necro-based theirs off of. But voidlings are roughly knee-high to start, so they would be a little bit taller than that. Oh. I don't know how to say your name, but welcome to the menagerie. Aru. Feels wrong, but I'm calling you Aru. I'm excited to see all the voidling OCs. I'll get them all posted publicly. Get everybody excited. It's the other stress syllable. You see, I understand the term stress syllable, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what it means. Whoa. You burned your tongue. How'd you do that? This is the problem with learning a language as a native speaker, is things just be doing the things they do, but I don't understand them why they do. Voidlings are able to take instruction at the starting point and listen as best as they can. But when it comes to their own self-intelligence at that point, are more like cats. Cats and dogs, without being able to understand things and being able to be taught, but not having much complex thought yet. But as they grow and get stronger, they begin having more complex thought. And at the level of Jack, they have fully thought out thoughts. Thank you. Thank you very much, this is Poco. Oh, me too, Mutt. Fully thought out thoughts, exactly. Thank you, thank you. Right. I try to keep the vibes here very nice and chill. Not going the full ASMR route, but still relaxing as best I can be. Alright, I guess we got this for us now. Lovely, Lother Southern. I can keep that up for a little while. Long as that request is there. All of my voices are ASMR? I mean, if they trigger the auto, well, whatever ASMR stands for. Like I was told before, I ain't gotta be smart, I just gotta be pretty. Good morning, Gruzabella. How you doing? See, I don't do that. I don't need to riz anybody. I just like existing in my space. Relaxing, enjoying the time. Being here. Autonomous sensory meridian response. There it is. I had to focus there for just a second. Thank y'all for being patient. Why don't you take a nap? Thank you for the follow, Crucibella. Enjoy your time in the menagerie. ASMR. A lot of smooth letters. You can focus not very well, especially not when I'm not on my meds. Speaking of, if you haven't taken your medications yet, please do so. Alright. Take your vitamins, eat some food, drink some water if you haven't yet. In that case, you should go get them chores done. And we're back to the normal voice. Trying is difficult, but as you do it, the more you do it, the better you'll get. And if you ever need somebody to hype up your drawings, I'm always happy to be that person. Because I think any artwork is amazing. Art, creativity, creation is the closest we get to God. Well, I want to be on the side that is best for you, Flower. You bulk sent your art? I'll have to see it. If you're struggling with anatomy, look up the book Morpho, M-O-R-P-H-O, Morpho Simplified Anatomy. It breaks down the anatomy into simple shapes in ways that's very easy to understand, and it has helped a lot of artists make that leap. I may. You know, I'm having fun just going. I don't know where we're going, but I'm having fun just going. Night, night, sleepy, or whoever says night. I do have a home base. It's in the opposite direction. I think I have enough food to last me for a little while. Maybe eventually I'll find something cool. That feels like I have either a short forearm or big feet. And I don't know which one is true. I suppose I do have big feet. Interesting to think about now. Enjoy your Minecraft mod. Be careful. There's a cage man. He might be behind you already. The reference for you, I just fell on your foot. Anytime I'd play an SMP with friends, I would always do this. I would start just walking in a random direction and making sure I was far, far away from everybody. Which I suppose defeats the purpose of, playing an SMP with friends. The avoiding ref sheet is being made. You will see soon. Alright, where are we going? Oh, boat. Oh, were you not here for the cage, man? Carmea, do you know about the bag, man? Well, so voidlings have been disappearing. And, there's been talk of a cage man. And so the thought might be that there might be something out there that has been grabbing voidlings and vanishing with them. But I mean, there's no such thing as the cage man. That'd be crazy, so I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure it's fine. Take better care of them. What? There's nothing's happening, though. Some voidlings are just wandering away. I don't know how, but they are. I'm sure they'll show up eventually. Somewhere in the void of the cage. I should chain you down, you say? I mean, alright. If you insist, she'll make it a lot easier to keep track of you. Show must go on. Woman, slow it down. You must get there safe and sound. I said, no, no, no. Show must go on. Nada. Grab your rain bunny, little voidling. Oh. Yo, this pirate did not hide his treasure very far. What the heck? You can have a hug. Mm-hmm. I've seen Finding Nemo. Wow, who hasn't seen Finding Nemo? I've also seen the Spy Kids movies, thank you. Love the Spy Kids movies. Thank you for the follow. J. Welcome to the menagerie. Noon seen Finding Nemo? Well, there you go. Alright, it's here somewhere. I'll take it nice and easy and we'll find it. That'd be so funny if it's on the pirate ship. It's still on the pirate ship. And we're looking for buried treasure, yes. Indubitably. Can lemons be used as escapement repellent? Sure, why not? I'm sure that's fine. I'm sure that will... Wait a second. That looks odd. Purr. You never found a chest ever? Oh, it's not too hard. Eight. Here, maybe. I'll find a chest for you today. Unless it has gotten accidentally destroyed, which would be funny to me. The treasures, the friends we made along the way, and this gun I found. You found treasure? Mm-mm. I've not played much chess. Do I want to teach you how to play chess? I think I could actually play chess with some of the voidlings. And there it is. Found it. Wow, it is right next to the ship. That's funny. What, the chests? You thought the chests were myths? They're always there. Well, now you know they're not. And now you'll be able to find your own sometime. Alright, Ben, some morning stream we'll do some chess. It's a little mental warm-up. And y'all can repeatedly beat me in chess. Bet I'm only playing against Carmia though, so we'll see how that goes. And totally not because I just saw them say they're not good at chess. Thank you for the look, Shadowy. Thank you. good. Then I'll add you to the list. We'll have a raising difficulty of people to play in chess. Which I think will be a lot of fun. Thank you for the follow, CC. Welcome to the menagerie. Who is a grandmaster? It would not surprise me, honestly. It would not surprise me at all to find out a voidling is a grandmaster at chess or something. One day. I wonder if one of the reasons why a lot of streamers are good at chess, because they just so happen to have viewers who are good at chess and practice against them. You just look at grandmother. Valid. I don't want to be a chess grandmaster. That sounds like a lot of work. I would like to stay dumb, thank you. Too much brain. Not worth. How does chess work? Well, you have a bunch of pieces, and you pick up the piece, and you throw them at the other player. And eventually, if you hit them in the eye, they cry and go home. Then you win at chess. Am I encouraging violence? No. I'm just explaining the lovely, lovely rules of chess. Pouting when they don't go home. Well, I want to win. So you take the chess pieces and you see how many you can eat. An angle measure ruler? Good luck. You got this. I am the wrong tree to be barking up. Don't ask me maths questions. You can maybe ask me history, but I will definitely not tell you the years. Who be hit now? As he should be. Get all of my quirks. 21. Now it's 21. Try again. Hmm, 21. Cackles tired. Laughs in eBay. Candy dice. Buy candy dice. Whenever one critically fails, you eat it. That's a reference to a vine. I have. It's called Divine. dig up this ruin. Yes. I see. Alright. It's a rock. I'm so good at archaeology. I got it wrong. Robert, I don't like this rock. Oh, that was a boring, lush cave. Boo. I'm a little sad now, because there was nothing worthwhile. But at least we got a little. What's today, Minecraft being? Did you call me the Minecraft being? I don't think I've ever been called the Minecraft being before. Don't be a hypocrite. The hair's still wet from yesterday. Did you get out of the shower at some point? Or are you still in the shower? What if I jump in the lava? Oh. We're going. And when I say we go far. Oh, yeah, no, I've played, like, we've done, like, Drawful and stuff together. Do community nights from time to time, where I will play games with y'all. One day I might make a Minecraft server. Today we're going to be watching K-pop Demon Hunters. But after stream I'm going to be taking a nap. I've been enjoying taking naps on my weekends. Especially right after my early morning stream and then just immediately going back to bed. Today, 11 a.m. MST. Probably. Unless I sleep too long. It's the weekend. It's almost the week again. I almost have to go back to work. Get some rest, enjoy it. 2 hours difference. No, we do not. Cut to me, I can say whatever they want. Oh, I feel it is the worst, isn't it? It is the absolute worst, feeling better that you're like, I can go to work. I don't wanna though. Let's keep going. I think I'd like to play. I think I'd like to play the old Minecraft version where there used to be a border. Like you'd hit a certain part of the world and the rendering got weird. That was always cool. Yes. You ever see the guy who just ran to the edge? I think he did it in one video too, like he just ran nonstop. I couldn't do that, but I think I'd like to run there. Run so far away. Couldn't get away. Ah, the boat's gone. My addiction to being a good boy. Oh no, I'm so addicted to being good. That's crazy. The blanket is off. Oh, thank you for the blanket. Thank you. The heck? Thank you, Shiny. Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, this should be the last day of the month, right? So any money in this will go, and I'll get it on the 15th, which is nice. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Is it payday for people? Y'all, I'm here to rob you. Yeah, it might be. Where's tomorrow, the 31st? Nope, it's the 30th. 7 days has... 7 days has November. Oh, enjoy your lunch. December's tomorrow, you know what that means? I'm getting a Santa outfit. And we're gonna play Christmas music all month. And I'll be humming Christmas music nonstop. Merry Chrysler. Jingle bell, jingle bell, jingle bell rock. Jingle bell swing and jingle bell ding. Do you have a list of naughty and nice foilings? Oh, I don't need to have a list. Because I mean, naughty foilings get taken by the Hat Man. Not the Hat Man, sorry, the Cage Man. There are no naughty voidlings, not for long. Does the Hat Man take good voidlings? The Hat Man comes demanding his money. I need to check on something. Give me a sec here. Mm. It is lovely in the morning. Though my brain is slowly shutting off, and my body's like, you should just sleep right now. What if I just sleep on stream, y'all? Once upon a time, there was an extra tall voidling. A little lanky, his fingers a little long, and he always liked to cause trouble, shaking the cage, trying to eat the other voidlings. But unlike most of the voidlings, he decided to explore the depths of the cage, the ever-expanding cage. He went back and back and back until he realized he was alone, so far from anyone else. In any direction that he went, he found was the wrong direction. He was getting hungry, thin, and his time in the void seemed to affect him. He grew taller, longer, thinner. And then one day he did it. He stumbled upon somebody else who was watching and walking around in the void. But he was hungry. So very hungry. Anyways, I'm sure everything went fine. See now. Be careful out there, voidlings. Thank you for the fall, broken little dreamer. Armadillo, kick, 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 kick. No lick, just kick. I mean, if not kick, then why ball? Kick. I would, yes. I feel you, Ariana. I need to get my little niece a present. There are armadillos. Armorillos. Kick, kick, kick. Thank you for the follow. Welcome to the menagerie. Good morning, Mochi. Oh, good. Okay, let me go kill some armadillos then. We need some dog armor. Do I have to kill them? No kill? And how do I get dog armor? Brush? What do you mean, brush? Thank you for the check-in. I wonder if Kermia's heart stopped there. What do you think? Thank you for the looks, Kermia. Lemon. Okay, we're going back home. Fish are friend, not food. You can't prove it. Cannot prove it. Let me eat the fish. Oh. Oh. Yummy. You can also occasionally eat a voidling they won't notice. I mean, what? Don't eat the voidlings. I think I want to read a poem. I won't feed you to people. I'll eat you personally. I think it's time to read a poem. Let's read a poem. Here we go. Once upon a midnight journey, while I pondered weak and weary over many quaint and curious volume of forgotten lore, while I nodded nearly napping, suddenly there came a tapping, as of someone gently rapping at my chamber door. "'Tis some visitor," I muttered, tapping at my chamber door. "Only this and nothing more." Distinctly I remember it was in the bleak December, and each separate dying ember wrought its ghost upon the floor. Eagerly I wished the morrow, faintly I had sought to borrow from my books ceased of sorrow for the lost Lenore, the rare and radiant maiden whom the angels named Lenore. Nameless here forevermore, and the silk and sad uncertain rustling of each purple curtain thrilled me, filled me with fantastic terrors never felt before. Asteria, welcome. So that now, 'tis still the beating of my heart, I stood repeating, "'Tis some visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. Some late visitor entreating entrance at my chamber door. This it is and nothing more. Thank you for the follow, Blue Rose Robin." Presently my soul grew stronger, hesitating then no longer. "Sir," said I, "or madam, truly your forgiveness I implore. But the fact is I was napping, and so gently you came tapping, and so faintly you came rapping at my chamber door, that I scarce was sure I heard you. Here, open wide the door. Darkness there and nothing more. Deep into that darkness peering, long I stood there, wondering, fearing, doubting, dreaming dreams no mortal ever dared to dream before. But the silence was unbroken, and the stillness gave no token, and the only word there spoken was the whispered word, "Lenore." This I whispered, an echo murmured back the word Lenore. Merely this and nothing more. Thank you for the check-in and welcome. Welcome to the menagerie, me soup. Back into the chamber, turning, all my soul within me burning. Soon again I heard a tapping, somewhat louder than before. Surely, said I, surely that is something at my lattice. Let me see then what thereat is, and this mystery explore. Let my heart be still a moment, and this mystery explore. 'Tis the wind, and nothing more. Open here I flung the shutter, when with many a flirt and flutter, in the step the stately raven of the saintly days of yore. Not the least obeisance made he, not a minute stopped or stayed he, but with mine of lord or lady perched above the chamber door, perched upon a bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door, perched and sat and nothing more. Oh, hello, hello, hello. Welcome, lovelies. We're reading a little bit of Poe right now. How are you doing? How was your stream? Welcome, welcome, welcome. I don't know if you have any mods around right now, or else I'd give you a little shout out right away. Yeah, give me just a second while I do this. There we go. Please give them a follow, lovelies. And hello, hello, hello. How was your stream? Bunny cat. No, I like it. Were you also doing ASMR? You were. Then this ebony. Oh, you have a good one. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the continents it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure no graven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Much I marveled this ungainly fowl to hear discourse so plainly, though its answer little meaning, little relevancy bore. For we cannot help agreeing that no living human being ever yet was blessed with seeing a bird above his chamber door, bird or beast upon the sculpted bust above his chamber door, with such name as Nevermore. But the raven sitting lonely on the placid bust spoke only that one word, as if his soul in that one word he did outpour. Nothing farther than he uttered, not a feather than he fluttered, till I scarcely more than muttered, other friends have flown before. On the morrow he will leave me, as my hopes have flown before. Then the bird said, nevermore. Startled at the stillness broken by reply so aptly spoken, doubtless, said I, what it utters is its only stock and store, caught from some unhappy master whom unmerciful disaster followed fast and followed faster, till his songs one burden bore, till the dirges of his hope that melancholy burden bore, of never, nevermore. Thank you for all the follows. Welcome to the menagerie. But the raven still beguiling all my fancy into smiling, straight I wheeled a cushioned seat in front of bird and bust and door. Then upon the velvet sinking, I betook myself to linking fancy onto fancy, thinking what this ominous bird of yore, what this grim, ungainly, ghastly, god and ominous bird of yore meant in croaking nevermore. This I sat. One day maybe I do some voice acting, but nothing that, well, I do some voice acting. This I sat engaged in guessing, but no syllable expressing to the fowl whose fiery eyes now burned to my bosom's core. This and more I sat divining, with my head at ease reclining on the cushion's velvet lining that the lamplight glowed adore, but whose velvet violet lining with the lamplight gloating o'er she shall press, nevermore. Then methought the air grew denser, perfumed from unseen censer, swung by seraphim whose footfalls tinkled on the tufted floor. Wretch, I cried, thy God hath lent thee, by these angels he hath sent me, respite, and nepentine from thy memories of Lenore. Quaff this kind nephthin, and forget this lost Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still of bird or devil, whether tempter sent or whether tempest tossed thee here ashore. Desolate yet all undaunted, on this desert land enchanted, on this home by horror haunted, tell me truly I implore. Is there balm in Gilead? Tell me I implore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Prophet, said I, thing of evil, prophet still of bird or devil, by that heaven that bends above us, by that God we both adore. Tell the soul with sorrow laden within the distant Aden, it shall clasp a sainted maiden whom the angels named Lenore. Clasp a rare and radiant maiden, the angels named Lenore. Quoth the raven, nevermore. Thank you, Yogi. Be that word or sign of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting. Second. There we go. Be that word of parting, bird or fiend, I shrieked upstarting. Get thee back into the tempest and the night's Plutonian shore. Leave no black bloom of token that lie thy soul has spoken. Leave my loneliness unbroken, quite the bust above my door. Take thy beak from out my heart, and take thy form from off my door. Quoth the raven, nevermore. And the raven, never flitting, still is sitting, on the pallid bust of Pallas, just above my chamber door. And his eyes have all the seeming of a demon's that is dreaming, and the lamplight o'er him streaming throws his shadow on the floor. And my soul from out that shadow that lies floating on the floor shall be lifted nevermore. There you go. I hope y'all don't mind if we do some more poetry reading this morning. It's hitting a nice vibe for me. So I might do some more poetry reading if y'all don't mind. Hello, Timpus. Welcome. Let's see. Show more. How about we do... this one. wast that all to me, love, for which my soul did pine? A green isle in the sea, love, a fountain and a shrine, all wreathed with fairy fruits and flowers, and all the flowers were mine. A dream too bright to last, a starry hope that did arise, but to be overcast, a voice from out the future cries, on, but o'er the past, dim gulf my spirit hovering lies, mute, motionless, aghast. For alas, alas with me, the light of life is o'er, no more, no more, no more. Which language holds the solemn sea, till sands upon the shore shall bloom the thunder-blasted tree, or the stricken eagle soar. And all my days are chances, and all my nightly dreams are where thy grey eye glances, and where thy footsteps gleams, and what ethereal dances, but what eternal streams. To One in Paradise by Edgar Allan Poe. Thank you, Team Fizz. I hope you're doing alright. Good morning. The Sleeper. At midnight in the month of June, I sat beneath the mystic moon. An opioid vapor, dewy, dim, exhales from out her golden rim, and softly dripping drop by drop upon the quiet mountain top, steals drowsily and musically into the universal valley. The rosemary nods upon the grave, the lily lows upon the wave, wrapping the fog about its breast, the ruin moulders into rest. Collect leaf, see the link, conscious slumber seems to take, and would not for the world awake. All beauty sleeps in low, where lies Irene with her destinies. O lady bright, can it be right, this window up open to the night? The wanton airs from the tree top laughingly through the lattice drop. The bodiless airs a wizard rout, flit through my chamber in and out, and wave the curtain canopy so fitfully, so fearfully. Above the closed and fringed lid, neath which thy slumbering soul lies hid, and o'er the floor and down the wall, like ghosts the shadow rise and fall. O lady dear, hast thou no fear? Why and what art thou dreaming here? Sure thou art come o'er far off seas, a wonder to these garden trees. Strange is the pallor, strange thy dress, strange above all thy length of tress, and this all solemn silentness. The lady sleeps, oh may her sleep, which is enduring so be deep. Heaven have her in its sacred keep, this chamber changed for one more holy, this bed for one more melancholy. I pray to God that she may lie forever with unopened eye, while the pale sheeted ghosts go by. My love, she sleeps, oh may her sleep, as it is lasting so be deep. Soft may the worms about her creep, far in the forest dim and old, for her may some tall vault unfold, some vault that oft hath flung its black and winged panels fluttering back, triumphant o'er the crested poles of her grand family funerals. Some grand sepulchre remote alone, against whose portals she hath thrown in childhood many an idle stone, some tomb from out whose sounding door she ne'er shall force an echo more, thrilling to think, poor child of sin, it was the dead who groaned within. The Sleeper. What are we talking about? Cake and lemonade? I do love a sour lemonade. Nothing crazy. Still, a sour is nice. With just a little bit of sweet. Thank you, ad guy. Thank you. It was many and many year ago in a kingdom by the sea that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea, but we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee. The love that the winged seraphs of heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that long ago, in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of the cloud chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her highborn kinsman came and bore her away from me, to shut her up in a sepulchre, in this kingdom by the sea. The angels not half so happy in heaven went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea. The wind came out of the cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love it was strong by far than the love those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we, and neither the angels in heaven above, nor the demons down under the sea, can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee. The stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so all the night tide I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea. I think one more should work. Now, do you want a short story? Or do you want another poem? Short story. All right. Do a little short story. The Cask of Amontillado. The Cask of Amontillado. The thousand injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. You who so well know the nature of my soul will not suppose, however, that I gave utterance to a threat. At length I would be avenged. This was a point definitively settled. Thank you for the follow. The very definiteness with which it was resolved precluded the idea of risk. I must not only punish, but punish him with impunity. A wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. It is equally unredressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. It must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill. I continued, as was my wont, to smile in his face, and he did not perceive that my smile now was at the thought of assimilation. He had a weak point, this Fortunato. Although in other regards he was a man of respected and even feared, he prided himself on his connoisseurship in wine. Few Italians have the true virtuoso spirit. For the most part, their enthusiasm is adopted to suit the time and opportunity, to practice imposture upon the British and Austrian millionaires. In painting and in gemmery, Fortunato, like his countrymen, was a quack, but in the matter of old wines he was sincere. In this respect I did not differ from him materially. I was skillful in the Italian vintages myself, and bought largely whenever I could. It was about dusk one evening, during the supreme madness of the carnival season, that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with excessive warmth, for he had been drinking much. The man wore motley, yet on tight-fitting party-striped dress. His head was surmounted by a conical cap and bells. I was so pleased to see him that I thought I should never have done wringing his hand. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, I luckily met. How remarkably well you're looking today. But I have received a pipe of what passes for Amontillado, and I have my doubts." "How?" said he. "Amontillado? A pipe? Impossible, in the middle of the carnival." I vividly. "How?" said he. "Oh, I read that. I have my doubts," I replied. "And I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain." "Amontillado? I have my doubts." "Amontillado? And I must satisfy them." "Amontillado? As you are engaged, I am on my way back to Lucasia. If anyone has a critical turn, it is he. He will tell me. Lucasia cannot tell Amontillado from sherry, and yet some fools will have it that his taste is a match for your own. Come, let us go." "Whither?" "To your vaults." "My friend, no, I will not impose upon your good nature. I perceive you have an engagement. Lucasia, I have no engagement. Come." Welcome, Bakugo. "My friend, no, it is not the engagement, but the severe cold with which I perceive you are afflicted. The vaults are insufferably damp. They are encrusted with night. Let us go, nevertheless. The cold is merely nothing. Amontillado, ye have been imposed upon, and as for Lucchesi, ye cannot distinguish sherry from Amontillado." Thus speaking, Fortunato possessed himself of my arm, putting on a mask of black silk and drawing a I can't say that word. Don't know, closely upon my person. I suffered him to hurry me to the palazzo. There were no attendants at home. They had absconded to make merry in honor of the time. I had told them that I should not return until the morning, and had given explicit orders not to stir from the house. These orders were sufficient, I well knew, to ensure their immediate disappearance, one and all, as soon as my back was turned. I took from their sconces 2 flamboys, and giving one to Fortunato, bowed him through several suites of rooms to the archway that led into the vaults. I passed down a long and winding staircase, requesting him to be cautious as he followed. We came at length to the foot of the descent, and stood together on the damp ground of the catacombs of the Montresors. The gait of my friend was unsteady, and the bells upon his cap jingled as he strode. "The pipe," said he. "It is farther on," said I, but but observe the white webwork which gleams from these cavern walls. He turned towards me and looked into my eyes, two filmy arms that distilled the rheum of intoxication. Niter? He asked at length. Niter, I replied. How long have you had that cough? Then he coughed, but I'm not going to make a coughing noise. My poor friend found it impossible to reply for many minutes. It is nothing, he said at last. Come, I said with decision. We'll go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You're happy as I once was. You are a man to be missed. For me it is no matter. We'll go back. You'll be ill, and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there's LuckyJene. Enough, he said. The cough is a mere nothing. It will not kill me. I shall not die of a cough. True, I replied. And indeed, I have no intention of alarming you unnecessarily. But you should use all proper caution. A draught of this medoc will defend us from the damps. Here, I knocked off the neck of a bottle, which I drew from a long row of its fellows and lay upon the mold. Drink, I said, presenting him the wine. He raised it to his lips with a leer, paused and nodded to me familiarly. The bells jingled. I drink, he said, to the buried that repose around us, and I to your long life. I be me. He again took my arm, and we proceeded. These vaults, he said, are extensive. The Montressors, I replied, were a great and numerous family. I forgot your arms. A huge human foot, door in a field of azure. The foot crushes a serpent rampant, whose fangs are embedded in the heel. And the motto, Nemo me impune lasciens. I need to look up what that means. No one attacks me with impunity, or no one provokes me without consequence. Ooh, I like it. This is not the story, this is me just saying that I like it. Good, he said. The wine sparkled in his eyes and the bells jingled. My own fancy grew warm with medoc. We had passed through walls of piled bones with casks and puncheons, intermingling into the inmost recesses of the catacombs. I paused again, and this time I made bold to seize Fortunato by an arm above the elbow. The nitre, I said, see it increases, it hangs like moss upon the vaults. We are below the riverbed, the drops of moisture trickle through the bones. Come, we will go back ere it is too late. Your cough. It is nothing, he said. Let us go on, but first another draught of medoc. I broke and reached him a flagon of de Grave. He emptied it at breath. His eyes flashed with fierce light. He laughed and threw the bottle upward with gesticulation I did not understand. I looked at him in surprise. He repeated the movement, a grotesque one. You do not comprehend, he said. Not I replied. Then you are not of the Brotherhood. How? You are not of the Masons. Yes, I said, yes. You, impossible. A Mason? A Mason, I replied. A sign, he said. It is this, I answered, producing a trowel from beneath the folds of my roquelaire. You jest. Thank you for the follow and welcome to the menagerie. He exclaimed, recoiling a few places. But let us proceed to the Amontillado. Be it so, I said, replacing the tool beneath my cloak, and again offering him my arm. Be it so, I said, replacing the tool beneath the cloak and again offering him my arm. He leaned upon it, heavily. We continued our route in search of the Amontillado. We passed through a range of low arches, descended, passed on, and descending again, arrived at a deep crypt in which the foulness of the air caused our flimbox rather to glow than flame. At the most remote end of the crypt, there appeared another less spacious. Its walls had been lined with human remains, piled to the vault overhead, in the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris. 3 sides of this interior crypt were still ornamented in this manner. From the 4th, the bones had been thrown down and lay promiscuously upon the earth, forming at one point a mound of some size. Within the walls thus exposed the displacing of the bones, we perceived a small interior recess in the depth about 4 feet, in width 3, in height 6 or 7. It seemed to have been constructed for no especial use within itself, but formed merely the interval between 2 of the colossal supports of the roof of the catacombs, was backed by one of their circumscribing walls of solid granite. It was in vain that Fortunato, uplifting his dull torch, endeavored to pry into the depth of the recess. Its termination the feeble light did not enable us to see. "Proceed," I said. "Herein is the Amontillado. As for Lucchesi—" "He's an ignoramus," interrupted my friend, as he stepped unsteadily forward while I followed immediately at his heels. In an instant he had reached the extremity of the niche, and finding his progress arrested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. A moment more and I had fettered him into the granite. In its surface were 2 iron staples, distant from each other about 2 feet horizontally. From one of these depended a short chain, from the other a padlock. Throwing the links around his waist, it was but the work of a few seconds to secure it. He was much too astounded to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recesses. "Pass your hand," I said, "o'er the wall. Cannot help feeling the night air. Indeed, it is very damp. Once more let me implore you to return. No? Then I will positively leave you. But I must first render you all the little attentions in my power." "The Amontillado," ejaculated my friend, not yet recovering from his astonishment. "True," I replied, "the Amontillado." As I said these words, I busied myself among the pile of bones of which I had before spoken. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. I had scarcely laid the first tier of my masonry when I discovered that the intoxication of Fortunato had in great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had this was a low moaning cry from the depth of the recess. It was not the cry of a drunken man. There was then a long, obstinate silence. I laid the 2nd tier, and the 3rd, and the 4th. Then I heard the furious vibrations of chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which that I might hearken to it with more satisfaction. I ceased my labors, sat down upon the bones, but at last the clanking subsided. I resumed the trowel and finished without interruption the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th tier. The wall was nearly upon a level with my breast. I again paused, holding the torch over the mason-work. There were a few feeble rays upon the figure within. A succession of loud and shrill screams bursting suddenly from the throat of the chained form seemed to thrust me violently back. For a moment I hesitated. I trembled. Unsheathed my rapier, I began to grope with it about the recesses. The thought of an instant reassured me. I placed my hand upon the solid fabric of the catacombs and felt satisfied. I approached the wall, replied to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed, I aided. I suppressed them in volume and in strength. I did this, and the clamor grew still. Thank you for the follow, and welcome to the menagerie. It was now midnight, and my task was drawing to a close. I had completed the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th tier, finished a portion of the last and the 11th. There remained but a single stone to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with its weight, placed it partially in its destined position, but now there came from out the niche a low laugh that erected the hairs upon my hand. It was succeeded by a sad voice, which I had difficulty in recognizing as the noble Fortunato. The voice said, a very good joke indeed, an excellent jest. I've many a rich laughed about in the palazzo. He, over wine. The Amontillado, I said. Yes, the Amontillado, but is it not getting late? Will not they be awaiting us at the palazzo, the Lady Fortunato and the rest? Let us be gone. Yes, I said, let us be gone. For the love of God, Montressor. Yes, I said, for the love of God. But to these words, I heard in vain for reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud, Fortunato. No answer. I called again, Fortunato. No answer still. I thrust the torch to the remaining aperture and let it fall within. There came forth in return only a jingling of bells. My heart grew sick on account of the dampness of the catacombs. I hastened to make an end of my labor, forced the last stone into its position. I plastered it up. Against the new masonry, I re-erected the old rampart of bones. For the half of a century, no mortal has disturbed them. And pace requiescant. And there we go. Oh, a long story, but a short one nonetheless. A man who took a man who had treated him wrong and boarded him up in the walls. Good. Thank you for the follow, Daisy. I hope you all enjoyed that. And with that, come up on the last couple minutes of stream. Yes. No, don't give me that look. You know the rules. I would never board up the cage. I need you all alive. And so I'm gonna find somebody to raid out to. Oh boy. Okay, we're not gonna raid that person, though they look very interesting. See if we can find somebody in the ASMR category to raid. Lilithwing. Yep. Soft tingles. Are any of my people around? That's disappointing. Oh, maybe this one. Trying to find one I think would be a nice fit for us. But I'm not seeing anyone on right now. Did you all enjoy the stories, though? Did you enjoy them over the game? I was starting to feel a little bit worn out of Minecraft, so I thought it'd be nice to, just do a little bit of that. Nice, I'm glad. Oh, I'm sorry you only heard the last bit. See how this person's doing? Oh, they seem very comfy. Alright, we'll right into them. Yes. Oh, lovelies. Thank you so much for spending time with me. Let me get some stuff going here. We're not going to use that raid message because that raid message is too loud. We're going to use this one instead. I'm such a good doggy. Please use this raid message, the EP raid. I really do appreciate you all so very, very much. Thank you. I may get some sleep, but I'll be back later. And I'll be eating a lemon, unfortunately. Mwah. 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 Bye, lovelies.